All right, so you're a retired Navy SEAL. You went through the Air Force Special Operations Community. You've deployed to Iraq, broken the world record for pull-ups, run a few ultramarathons. So what do you say when you're introducing yourself to people? Like, how do you introduce yourself to people with all of that?
Well, kind of how you said it right there. I just kind of give them a quick snapshot of what I've done. I'm David Goggins, you know.
You said you served in the Air Force and you got out, and in your own words, you said you gained a lot of weight.
Right.
So how did, that's kind of hard to go through. What happened when you got out?
So basically, I joined the Air Force at 19 years old. Mm-hmm. I was about 175 pounds. And I joined to go be Air Force pararescueman. And in that process, things didn't go the way I thought they'd go. So I joined, wasn't real comfortable in the water, hated the water. So there were some evolutions that happened. And I was getting through it. I was making it through, you know, kind of just trying to see where I could fit myself in there. So long story short, had to get some tests done for some blood, and they said I had sickle cell, and it kind of gave me a way out. I hated the water. The sickle cell gave me a way out, and the doc called me in the office about a week later and said, "Hey, you know, we're gonna keep you in training because sickle cell, disqualifies you." But at this time, they kept me in training. So they kept me in training. I thought to myself, I don't want to go back to the water, and I pretty much left pararescue training. I quit. In that process, I went from 175 to about 300 pounds.
Wow.
So I started finding things that made me very comfortable, things that made me feel better about myself. And that's where I started going downhill. And I got out of the Air Force in about 4 years. I was an Air Force TACP, where you control airstrikes. You control fast movers behind enemy lines. I did that for a while. I got out, and that's where the story begins pretty much for me.
So what got you interested in the SEAL community in the first place? Like, what caught your eye?
Well, I was spraying for cockroaches when I got out of the Air Force. I was spraying for cockroaches. I was about 297 to be exact. And I saw this Discovery Channel show on TV, and I was like, and that Discovery Channel show was just guys going through Hell Week. Okay. And I saw these guys freezing, a lot of water. And I was like, you know what? It brought back memories of me going through pararescue training and how bad the water used to mess me up mentally. Mm-hmm. So whenever you run from something in life and you don't handle it, some people are fine with it. Some people can, live fine and go on their merry way and, be fine with it. It bothered me. And so every time I would see something like that, it would bother me. So I watched that show, and it just bothered me. So at 297 pounds, I decided to try to be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, you just went for it, okay. So when you went into the recruiter's office, what was that conversation like? Just walking in there with interest the first day? So
I usually tell a story pretty fast. Mm-hmm. Like I met one recruiter, and that's how it happened. But it's a long, drawn-out story. So when I saw the show on the Discovery Channel, that's when I started calling recruiters. And when you tell a recruiter that you have prior service in the Air Force and that you're almost 300 pounds and you want to be a SEAL, it doesn't go too well.
Yeah, they probably ask if you're like, are you sure?
Yeah, I got hung up on it a couple of times. So this went on for about 2 weeks because they thought I was joking around. They weren't taking me serious. Yeah. So I finally met a guy named Steven Saljo. I called him on the phone after about 2 weeks of just hunting down recruiters. And he was a Navy reservist recruiter. So I called him up. I said, hey, I want to be a Navy SEAL. He was busy. Mm-hmm. So he didn't know how big I was. He didn't know anything about me pretty much. So I came in, and he was the first recruiter that looked at me and was like, he saw how big I was, but he gave me a shot. Okay. And I was just looking for a shot. So it kind of went from there. He went through all different, manuals. And to make a long story short, I had to lose 106 pounds in less than 3 months. And that's where it became challenging for me.
So how did you go about losing that weight in 3 months? Like what was your training/dieting plan at that point?
Well, there wasn't much of a diet, pretty much. It was like pretty much don't eat. And what I did was I wake up in the morning time, I have a banana. So I knew to lose 106 pounds in less than 3 months, you're looking at 3,500 calories is a pound. So I was basically doing a whole bunch of math in my head. So I knew if I were to stop and be stagnant, there was no calories being burned. So my mind became very obsessed. So if I like right now, I couldn't have this interview. I'd have to do it while riding a bike. So to watch TV, I rode a bike. Because, weighing 300 pounds, you can't go out and start running because your legs hurt real bad. So for the first 50 days, I rode a bike a lot. I went to the swimming pool a lot. I did high repetitions. So people go, why don't I have like a lot of fat, like excess skin on my body? Yeah. I developed a certain routine that my skin got, extremely tight. So I would do 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 reps on one exercise at a time. So I would go to the gym. I would see a weight I could do for let's say it was 60 pounds on the bar. So the bar is 45, and I put maybe 10 pounds on each side, and I would rep that out for 100 times. And I'd do a few sets of that. And that's how I would train. So I just basically trained all day long. So that's how I went. And before I knew it, I lost the weight.
So what was the reaction of the recruiter when you walked back into the office? Or I'm assuming you saw him over time. So what was his reaction to all seeing you lose that weight?
Well, they didn't believe I was going to do it.
Yeah.
So I would call him up at 11 o'clock at night just to give him details. Hey, man, I just got done running. And he was like, okay, that's great, I would call him all through the week at all hours of the night, all hours of the day. Mm-hmm. And he was like, okay, next thing he knew, I was 106 pounds lighter. And he was like, I can't believe what you just did. So it was a long process. I'm cutting 3 months down into a quick segment, but yeah, it was a long process. But when you lose 106 pounds in less than 3 months, you're not in the best shape of your life. You got a lot of cardio in, but you're just not in great shape. So my first place in the Navy was buds. So, my first indoctrination to the real Navy was buds.
So how'd that go, getting to buds then, not being in the greatest shape and maybe not necessarily healthy?
Well, that's the reason I went through 3 Navy SEAL Hell Weeks. Well, I was in 3, I completed 2. So when I started off, I got there and I wasn't in bad shape, but my body was broken. Mm-hmm. My legs weren't in the best shape because I had started having stretch fractures before I even got to buds. Because when you go from 297 to 191, in that time period, and you're running, you're starting to break yourself. So I broke myself before I even got into Navy SEAL training. Trying to lose the weight damn near killed me. And now I'm starting this training, already broken. Mm-hmm. So at this time frame, so nowadays, if you're in buds, they will, if you get rolled, they'll try to keep you where you were at in training. Mm-hmm. Buds just, 3 phases, first phase, second phase, and third phase. Mm-hmm. When I went through, there was about a 2 or 3 year period where the CEO there was named Captain Bowen. He believed in setting you back to day 1, week 1.
So you got rolled back 3 times to day 1, week 1?
Yeah, I got rolled back 3 times to day 1, week 1. So that's kind of how that whole buds thing happened. So my first time going through buds, I got the Hell Week, stretch fractures, double pneumonia. I got rolled back day 1, week 1. Second time going through buds, I got all the way through Hell Week, and shortly before second phase started, what happened was I actually fractured my patella before I got into Hell Week. Made it through Hell Week with a fractured patella, went 2 weeks after Hell Week, and then, because I didn't want to get rolled back to day 1, week 1.
Yeah.
But I couldn't keep up with the class, got rolled back to day 1, week 1 after Hell Week. And then I went through my 3rd time, and I graduated that class. We had a guy die in that 3rd Hell Week, class 235. So that's kind of how it happened.
So what did that feel like to keep getting rolled back, keep going through Hell Week? Where did you go when you were doing that in your mind?
Well, the funny thing about it, when I was in pararescue training, when I was younger, I didn't know how to process failure. Like whenever something would get tough for me, something I couldn't do, something I wasn't great at, the best thing to do is when you're not good at something is just quit. So that's what I did very well. I would find an excuse, I'd find a lie, I'd tell somebody a lie and I quit. I roll out and I tell them, oh, it was sickle cell, whatever. And I would kind of like skirt the truth. What I started figuring out going through buds was that the harder something is, the more it was challenging my mind. So I had to find different ways to stay in the fight. And in staying in the fight, it got me tougher and tougher and tougher. So I'm actually happy I went through 3 hell weeks. I actually wanted it in a way. I actually needed it to, I never examined myself. And as a human being, you got to examine yourself. And I guess the best place to examine yourself is, well, one of the best places is Navy SEAL Hell Week.
3 times.
So I got to examine myself a few times, yeah.
So what did after those 3, like what did it feel like to you to finally earn your trident, to finally get to that point?
All I wanted was more. I wanted a hell of a lot more. So it started there. It started in Hell Week, and it's still going now at 43 years old. Once
you graduated, after getting your trident, where did you go after that?
I graduated August 2001. August 10th, 2001. And as we all know, less than a month later, September 11 happened, So once that happened, my guys were going to airborne school. We got the word about it. I went to SQT, SEAL Qualification Training. And after that, I went right to SEAL Team 5. Well, my first deployment was SEAL Team 5. We went off to, so after 9/11 happened, we were thinking that we were going to go to Iraq. So you had some teams went to Iraq, some platoons went to Iraq, some platoons didn't go to Iraq. So I'll never forget, SEAL Team 5, Bravo Platoon, we're sitting in Korea. Okay. And we're waiting to get the word to go to Iraq. We're in a bowling alley. And we got the word that we weren't going to Iraq. So I got a chance to spend 9 months over in Thailand, Korea, and all these other places over there, just doing the job. And then my second platoon, we got the call. We went to Iraq. I was at SEAL Team 5, Bravo Platoon again. Got the second call, went to Iraq. So that's kind of how it went down.
I understand that you lost some friends in Operation Red Wings. So what did that feel like to you?
Being that I went through, I was in 3 hell weeks, I knew a lot of the guys. I knew every guy that died on the operation. So Marcus Luttrell, I was in Bud's when he was there. Danny Dietz was in one of my Bud's classes. Michael Murphy was in one of my Bud's classes. And Axelson, I actually trained him out at Nyland. So basically, I knew all these guys that were on that operation. And Marcus Luttrell has a twin brother named Morgan Luttrell. Me and Morgan Luttrell were in military free fall school during the operation. Okay. So when Marcus was in one of the worst incidents in SEAL history that ever happened, I was at free fall school with his twin brother, who was also a Navy SEAL. So I got the word that everybody died in the operation. They couldn't find Marcus. I got the word before Morgan got the word, his twin brother. I had to tell Morgan what happened. So basically, I'm sitting there at free fall school. I get the text message, and I'm trying to hit around to Morgan to see if he knows what happened. I could tell Morgan had no idea.
Wow.
So we had bad cell service out at Yuma, Arizona. So I was the first person to tell Morgan that his brother might be dead. So that whole twin thing, that twins can feel the other twin, he said Marcus is okay. Come to find out, 4 days later, 4 or 5 days later, Morgan calls me up and says, hey, they found Marcus alive. That story touched me. At this time, I went from 191 when I graduated Buds. I'm about 250 now. So I gained the weight back. I became some big power lifter. So the story touched me so much, I wanted to find a way to raise money for their families. Okay. So I started Googling different races, Googling different, organizations, for the, different foundations. So I found the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, where it gives 100% tuition. If you're a special operator and you die, it will give 100% tuition to your son or daughter to go to college. Okay. Great foundation. So now I got to find something to do to raise money for it. So I started Googling all these different races. I found the Badwater 135. So it's a 135-mile run through Death Valley in the summertime. Had no idea about ultra running. I'm 250 pounds. I'm a big meathead. I believe in protein and Jack and Steel. That's all I believe in. So I called the race director up of Badwater on a Wednesday.
Okay.
And I said, hey, I want to do this race to raise money. I didn't know it was a one-day race where you run for 135 miles in 48 hours or less. So it's a 2-day race. Didn't know anything about it. I thought it was a stage race where you run 15 miles, set up a camp, barbecue, cook out, and then go back out the next day. So here I am calling the guy up on Wednesday. He goes, hey, you got to qualify for this race. I go, how do you qualify? He said, you got to run 100 miles in 24 hours or less. I'm like, is that even possible? So he says, yeah, man, so that's what you got to do. So I try to give him my resume. I've gone through Ranger School. You know, I've gone through Air Force training. I've been in 3 hell weeks. He didn't care about any of that. All he cared about was Chris Kostman cared about you got to run 100 miles in 24 hours or less. And there happens to be a race on Saturday. So I'm like, there's 3 days. I haven't run over 20 miles the whole year.
Yeah.
And so this is now November, and I probably ran 20 miles the whole year. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing the math. It's about a 14-something mile. I could walk that 24 hours or less. So I go out to the San Diego one day to try to qualify for Badwater. And that story is quite horrific. But I went out there and I ended up doing 101 miles in 19 hours and 6 minutes on zero training.
Zero. Nothing.
Zero.
Not
zero.
even a little bit beforehand?
Zero training. None. So I called him up on a Wednesday, and that Saturday, so 3 days later,
You're just there.
I'm there running 100 miles on a 1-mile track. And that's when I started realizing it wasn't in buds. Mm-hmm. I thought, this is what I was talking about. I was scratching the surface of the human mind. It wasn't in buds. This is where it started happening to me. Because at mile 70, I was destroyed. Mm-hmm. I was peeing blood. I was dizzy, lightheaded. I was all over the place.
Most people would definitely stop peeing blood. And
that was it, right?
Yeah.
But I had a whole different mindset then. I was able to calm my mind down. Because I saw going through Hell Week, even when I was going through my own hard times, like in pararescue training, when something got hard, my mind would spaz out and I would quit immediately. I didn't know how to handle it. Going through buds, I started realizing that you have to learn to control your mind in these situations. Okay. So at mile 70, when I was in the worst shape of my entire life, I was able to draw on being calm. Calm the emotion down. Emotion controls us. Emotion cannot control us. So I got a hold of my emotions, I calmed down, and I was able to really just sit there and say, okay, I'm in the worst shape of my entire life. I should quit, but let's not quit yet. You're dizzy, let's not get dizzy. So let's get some hydration, let's get some salt, some potassium, let's get some more nutrition in your body. I wasn't dizzy anymore. That's the first step. So then I said, okay, let's see if I can stand up. So they would stand up. So I wasn't thinking about, I have 30 more miles to go.
You're just going little steps.
I was going little steps.
Okay.
Okay, you know what? It's pretty amazing. I ran 70 miles. The furthest I ever gone in my entire life was I did this makeshift 26-mile run like years ago out in Guam with this other guy. So I'm way exceeded that. I've gone 70 miles. The first I ever gone was 26. So I'm thinking, that's kind of cool. So now I'm trying to give myself some energy here. Okay, let's see if we can walk a mile. After being in the worst shape of your life, peeing on yourself, going to the bathroom on yourself, now let's see if you can walk a mile. So I walked a mile. I said, you know what? Let's see if we can walk 2 miles. Walked 2 miles. Got to mile 81, and my crew person said, hey, you're not going to make the time. I said, let's see if we can run a little bit now. So I was able to run the next 19 miles. So what I realized here, and this is where I stopped scratching the surface and started barreling deep inside human potential, was in this race right here. And I was starting to realize that we start to trap ourselves within our own mind. And our mind is this big barrier, this big wall. And once we get to pain and suffering, that wall gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the mind says, it's time to quit. if we're able to find out different ways to get around that, that's what happened to me, and I got around it. I was able to finish the race.
Where did you go in your mind to get to that point where you could just pull out another 23 miles or 30-something miles?
Right.
Where did you mentally go?
Well, this would be an 8-day process if I were to give you the whole thing. And this was years of working on this. The first thing you have to do is just to calm your mind down. The very first thing you have to do is don't give yourself a way out.
Okay.
You got to trick yourself also and say, you know what, I might quit, but I'm not going to quit right now.
So give yourself that light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
kind of like, this is possible.
Yeah, I might quit, but not now.
Okay.
So that kind of calms your mind down. Because if your mind knows, I'm not going to quit, it starts spazzing out even more. You're not going to quit, but let your mind think it has a little control over you. Give it a little cookie. Give it a little cookie, and then you can start processing.
Okay.
Sit there, calm it down, process. That's the first step in the whole journey, is you cannot spaz out when things get hard. And then when you're able to calm down, you're able to think. If you're under a panic situation and your mind is spastic, are you in control?
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
I know myself.
Yeah, no one is.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized. The worst decisions I make in my entire life is when my mind has said, let's get the hell out of here. We're done. This sucks. I'm over it. So that's the first thing in the whole process. And then realized, I call it the cookie jar. Something I invented years ago is you have to have something that fuels you in this time. So once you calm down, what's going to get you out of the chair? What's going to get you moving forward? You got to remember that I've been in times just as hard as this. So I reflected back on my life. I had a rough childhood, a rough upbringing that I talk a lot about in my book. So basically, that's kind of what I use. I use these different tools to get myself from point A to point B, and it's a process.
What motivates you to continue running ultramarathons, breaking the world pull-up record, running an Ironman? What continues, what gets you to keep doing that?
So back in the day, what motivated me was overcoming myself. I saw myself as a very weak individual, and I wanted to overcome myself. And once I started reaching these different hurdles, I realized that we all had this superhuman potential. Now at 43 years old, I believe in being a leader. And there's a lot of times, like there's no need for me to get up in the morning time and go out for these long runs. I've done it all. I'm good. I'm retired from the military. I did 21 years in the military. I've done it all. Now it's about setting the example for others to follow. So what keeps me going now is everyone wants to know, how do you become a leader? How are you a leader? Being a leader is sometimes the worst job in the world because you have to put yourself in some of the most uncomfortable situations of all time. For me to tell you to do something and I'm not doing it myself, that's what motivates me now. That's what keeps me going now, is that I have to continue to set the example. I can't talk it, I have to live it. You know, I believe that I can't talk about what I used to be. I used to be this guy that broke pull-up records. I used to be this guy that ran 100 miles, ran 200 miles. I have to still be that guy. And then when I'm not that guy anymore, I shut up talking about it because it's not me anymore.
What's your current daily workout routine? Like say on a long day where you have plenty of time to just do whatever.
Well, even if I don't have plenty of time, I get it in. Yeah, I make it. So I prioritize trying to win the battle in the morning. So I always win the battle in the morning. So I get up in the morning time. Every morning I go for a run. That's the first thing I do every morning. Haven't taken a day off of running since December 2016. Every day up in the morning. So I also stretch out every day for about 2 to 3 hours. Every day. I've missed 2 days in about 5.5, 6 years. So that's just my routine. And about 4 days a week, I'm in the gym hitting the weights. Because, you know, you can't just be a runner. So this is every single day, the monotony of my life. But this is what builds discipline. You know, and not everybody, I'm not telling everybody to do this. But this is my lifestyle. This is how I build self-discipline.
Consistency.
That's right.
What do you miss most about the Navy SEAL community since retiring?
Honestly, I don't miss anything about it.
Nothing.
Not one thing. I left it all out there. I was that guy no matter where I was at. I was that guy if I was on deployment and we got off an op at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was in the gym at 1:05 in the morning. Every single day of my life in the military, no matter what I was doing, I gave 100%. So at 21 years, I was good with it. I went through 2 heart surgeries. I went from anywhere deploying. I was a recruiter in the Navy SEALs. I was an instructor as a Navy SEAL. I did it all. But the whole time, I also lived like it was day 1, week 1 of buds. Even after I graduated Navy SEAL training, a lot of people who graduate something that's hard like that, they get comfortable. Even the biggest, baddest person in the world, they get comfortable. Every day of my entire life, I lived like it was day 1, week 1 of buds. And so I take a lot of pride in that. That's why I don't miss anything. Because basically it was extremely hard to deploy, to be in work, workups where you're training to be deployed and you're getting up early, getting after it, and you're still maintaining a high level of PT. Every day, push-ups, sit-ups, running every single day, along with doing the job as a SEAL. A lot of guys don't do that.
What are some of the most valuable things you learned in the Navy, be it about yourself or?
You know what? Some of the most valuable things, a lot of people say teamwork and stuff like that. Teamwork is big. But I learned that you have to be a good individual first. You have to triple down on your weaknesses, because a lot of times, like, you always count on your buddy next to you to help you out. Sometimes that buddy's not going to be there. You got to make sure that you are a jack of all trades and a master of all trades. And that's one thing. You got to have your buddy's back. They can have your back, but you got to work on yourself every single day. And that's one thing that the military has to really, really triple down on. Is something that we're missing nowadays a lot, is that total accountability of every day. Going back to boot camp in your mind. You may have boot camp sucks. SEAL training sucks. All these things suck, and people are so happy to get out of it. But that's what makes you good. Remember how you were when you got out of boot camp? You're kind of all like robotic and locked in, and then it slowly goes away. You get comfortable. You start to sag a little bit, start to walk around. You start to lose that militant discipline. That's the one thing I learned not to do in the military, is the military teaches you these great codes, ethics, morals, values. You got to continue to work on those. Like everything, it's a muscle. You stop going to the gym, you stop running, you get weak. The military teaches you these great values of strength and honor and code and all these other things. But what we do is we don't keep up the discipline of all that stuff, and we lose it. So the one thing I learned is to not lose that thing, that boot camp, SEAL training, whatever you go through, whatever your A school is, whatever it is, keep that discipline up. That's the biggest thing.
What would you say to anyone that you meet out running or something like that, considering joining the military?
I would say do it. I would say you have to do it. I think everybody should do at least 2 years in the military. I would tell them to start getting their minds sharp, because everything in the military is about mindset. It's about mindset. So I would definitely tell them to work on themselves. A lot of us work on ourselves at a surface level. I would tell them to dive deep, because we all have demons. We all come from something. So some people know my story. I'm very open about how I came up, how I grew up, and I really detail it really big in my book. It's called Can't Hurt Me. I really detail it big in there about how I came up and also how I developed my mindset. But a lot of us work on surface. You have to work on what really drives you, what are some of your problems in life. Because when you go to the military will definitely expose some of those issues. And they will make you quit, and they will make you start to question why I'm even here. So handle those things before you go in the military. And the military will kind of fine-tune who you are.